The year was 2347, and the vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the human warship Eclipse. It floated silently near the edge of Alliance-controlled territory, its sleek metallic frame glinting faintly under the light of a distant star. Inside, Captain Lover Bennett stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the monitors that lined the walls. The ship's crew moved with practiced efficiency, their movements quiet but purposeful. This patrol was supposed to be routine, just another day in the endless effort to keep the peace. But something felt different today. Lavra wasn't one to trust gut feelings alone, but years of commanding ships like the Eclipse had taught her to pay attention when things didn't feel right. She glanced at Lieutenant Daniel Brooks, the young communications officer seated at his station. His fingers danced over the controls as he monitored the various frequencies coming in from nearby sectors. He paused suddenly, his brow furrowing. As he leaned closer to the screen, "Captain," Daniel said, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "We're picking up a distress signal. It's weak, but it's definitely there." Lavra stepped closer, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. "Where's it coming from?" she asked, already sensing the gravity of the situation. "It's Lyria Prime," Daniel replied, his tone dropping slightly. "One of the Valen colonies." The name sent a ripple through the bridge. The Valens were one of humanity's closest allies in the galaxy, a peaceful species known for their advanced technology and deep wisdom. An attack on them was unthinkable, or so everyone had believed until now. "Patch it through," Lavra ordered, her voice calm but firm. A moment later, the strained voice of a Valen came through the speakers. The message was broken, fragmented by interference, but the desperation was clear. "Under attack, unknown forces. Destroying everything. Please help." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Lavra turned to face her crew, her expression resolute. "Get Admiral Hayes on the line. We need reinforcements, and fast." Admiral Carter Hayes appeared on the main screen moments later, his weathered face showing both concern and determination. "What's the situation, Captain?" he asked without preamble. "We've received a distress call from Lyria Prime," Lavra explained. "They're under attack, and they're asking for help. I recommend we send a fleet immediately." Hayes nodded grimly. "You'll have it. The Aurora, Defiant, and Vanguard are en route to your position. You'll lead the operation, Captain. Find out who's behind this and put a stop to it." "Yes, sir," Lavra replied, her voice unwavering. As the screen went dark, she turned back to her crew. "Prepare for hyperspace jump. We leave in 10 minutes. While the crew scrambled to ready the ship, Ensign Rachel Meyer sat nervously at her navigation console. She was new to the Eclipse, having transferred from a smaller vessel only weeks earlier. Her hands trembled slightly as she plotted the course to Lyria Prime. Commander Ryan Keller, the ship's executive officer, noticed her unease and approached her quietly. "You okay, Ensign?" he asked, his tone gentle but probing. Rachel hesitated before nodding. "Yes, sir, this is my first real combat mission. I don't want to mess anything up." Keller gave her a reassuring smile. "You'll do fine. Trust your training, and trust yourself. We're all counting on you." Rachel took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. She knew Keller was right, but the weight of responsibility still pressed heavily on her shoulders. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Brooks continued analyzing the distress signal, searching for any clues about the attackers. After several minutes of intense concentration, he looked up, his expression troubled. "Captain," he called out, "I think I've found something." Lavra joined him at his station, leaning over his shoulder to examine the data. "What is it?" "There's a pattern in the interference," Daniel explained. "It matches the energy signatures of some kind of weapon, something big. And here," he pointed to a section of the waveform. "This part looks like it could be shielding tech." "Advanced shielding," Lavra frowned. "So whoever's attacking has high-level weaponry and defenses. That rules out most minor factions." "Could it be the Krylos?" Daniel shook his head. "It doesn't match their usual tactics. They rely more on brute force than stealth or precision. Whoever this is, they're playing a smarter game." Before Lavra could respond, the ship shuddered slightly as it entered hyperspace. The stars outside blurred into streaks of light, and the hum of the engines filled the air. Everyone on the bridge braced themselves, knowing that whatever awaited them at Lyria Prime would test their skills and their courage to the limit. As the journey progressed, conversations among the crew grew quieter, the tension palpable. Some speculated about what they might find when they arrived, while others tried to distract themselves with routine tasks. Commander Keller wandered the ship, checking in with various departments to ensure everything was running smoothly. When he reached the engineering bay, he found Lieutenant Emma Dawson hard at work inspecting the ship's systems. "How's it looking down here?" Keller asked, watching as Emma adjusted a panel on the wall. "All good so far," she replied, wiping her hands on a cloth. "But if we're heading into a fight, I'd feel better if we had a little more firepower." Keller chuckled. "Don't we all?" "Still, the Eclipse can hold her own. Just make sure everything's ready for whatever comes our way." Emma nodded, her focus returning to the task at hand. Despite her casual demeanor, she was acutely aware of the stakes. If the ship failed during battle, it wouldn't just be the crew who paid the price, it would be the entire Alliance. Hours passed, and finally, the fleet emerged from hyperspace near Lyria Prime. What they saw took their breath away. The once beautiful planet, covered in sprawling forests and shimmering lakes, was now a wasteland. Thick green clouds choked the atmosphere, and massive craters scarred the surface. Fires burned in the distance, casting an ominous glow across the horizon. "Oh no," Rachel whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship. Lavra clenched her jaw, her heart heavy with anger and sorrow. "Scan for survivors," she ordered, "and prepare landing teams. We're going down there." The crew sprang into action, their earlier fears replaced by a sense of purpose. Whatever had happened here, they were determined to uncover the truth and to help those who remained. Little did they know, the answers they sought would lead them into even greater danger, and force them to confront questions they weren't prepared to ask. The fleet descended toward Lyria Prime, the sight of the devastated planet growing clearer with each passing moment. The Eclipse led the way, flanked by the Aurora, Defiant, and Vanguard. As they approached the surface, Captain Lavara Bennett stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the screens displaying live footage from the planet below. Thick green clouds swirled across the sky, blocking out much of the sunlight. Fires raged in the distance, their orange glow flickering through the haze. Entire cities lay in ruins, their once majestic towers reduced to rubble. "Begin scanning for life signs," Lavra ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her mind. "And prepare the landing teams." Lieutenant Emma Dawson, the ship's lead engineer, was already coordinating with her team. She had volunteered to join one of the ground missions, knowing her skills might be needed to salvage any remaining technology or data. Ensign Rachel Meyer worked alongside her, double-checking the coordinates for safe landing zones. Though Rachel still felt nervous about her role, she focused on the task at hand, determined not to let her crew down. As the shuttles prepared to deploy, Commander Ryan Keller addressed the landing teams. "Our priority is finding survivors and gathering information," he said firmly. "Stay alert. We don't know what or who we're dealing with here." The first shuttle touched down near the outskirts of a ruined city. The air outside was thick and acrid, forcing the teams to wear protective suits. Lavra stepped off the shuttle, her boots crunching against the ash-covered ground. Around her, the landscape was unrecognizable. Buildings that had once been marvels of Valen architecture now stood as jagged skeletons. Debris littered the streets, and the eerie silence was broken only by the distant crackle of flames. "Spread out," Lavra instructed. "Look for anything that can tell us what happened here." The teams moved cautiously, their weapons drawn. It wasn't long before they found the first survivor, a young Valen male huddled in the remains of a collapsed shelter. His skin, normally a soft silver hue, was streaked with dirt and soot. He looked up at them with wide, frightened eyes. "We're here to help," Lavra said gently, crouching beside him. "Can you tell us what happened?" The Valen hesitated, his voice trembling as he spoke. They came without warning. Ships unlike any we've seen before, they attacked without mercy. Their weapons, they burned everything. Who are they? Lavar pressed. Do you know their name? The Valen shook his head. We thought they were gone, extinct, but they returned. The Zetherians. The name sent a chill through the group. The Zetherians were a species humanity had encountered centuries ago, known for their aggression and advanced technology. They had vanished mysteriously during a galactic war, leaving behind legends of their ruthlessness. No one had expected them to return. Before Lavra could ask more questions, Lieutenant Brooks contacted her via comms. Captain, I'm picking up faint signals coming from the research facility in Sector 7. It looks like some systems are still operational. Good work, Lavra replied. We'll head there next. Keep scanning for survivors in the meantime. The team regrouped and made their way to the research facility, navigating through the treacherous terrain. Along the way, they passed more signs of destruction-burned-out vehicles, abandoned homes, and the charred remains of trees. The scale of the devastation was overwhelming, and it weighed heavily on everyone. When they reached the facility, they found it partially intact, though its exterior was scorched and battered. Lieutenant Dawson led the way inside, her scanner lighting up with readings from various systems still functioning within. The interior was dimly lit with emergency lights, casting long shadows across the walls. This place must have been hit hard, Dawson muttered, brushing aside a fallen beam. But if we can recover any data, it could give us answers. Ensign Rachel Meyer followed closely behind, her heart pounding as they ventured deeper into the complex. She had never been in a situation like this before, and every creak of the floor or flicker of light made her jump. Still, she reminded herself why she was here to help. To make a difference, Dawson stopped suddenly, pointing to a door ahead. That's the main control room. If there's anything left, it'll be in there. The team approached cautiously, their weapons ready. When they entered the control room, they found it in disarray. Consoles were smashed, wires hung loose. From the ceiling and the air smelled of burnt metal. But in the center of the chaos, one terminal remained active, its screen glowing faintly. I'll see what I can pull from this, Dawson said, setting down her toolkit. She began working quickly, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she accessed the facility's archives. After several tense minutes, she looked up, her expression grim. Captain, you need to see this, she said. Lavara stepped forward, leaning over Dawson's shoulder to view the screen. What she saw chilled her to the bone. The files contained detailed schematics of a massive weapon device capable of destabilizing entire star systems. According to the notes, the weapon was powered by stolen Valen technology, designed to harness energy from collapsing stars. This isn't just an attack, Lavra said quietly. It's a test. They're using the Valens as guinea pigs. Keller frowned. If they perfect this weapon, no one will be safe. Not the Valens? Not us, not anyone. We need to stop them, Lavar declared. But first, we need to find out where they went. Just then, the sound of movement echoed through the corridor outside. The team froze, their weapons raised. A moment later, a group of Valen survivors appeared, their faces gaunt and weary. One of them, an elder with deep lines etched into his silvery skin, stepped forward. You must leave this place, he urged. The Zetherians may return. You cannot fight them alone. We can't abandon you, Lavra replied. Not after what you've been through? The elder shook his head sadly. You do not understand. They are relentless. Their hunger for power knows no bounds. If you stay, you will share our fate. Before Lavra could respond, Lieutenant Brooks contacted her again. Captain, we've detected traces of hyperspace residue nearby. Whoever attacked this planet didn't go far. Lavra turned to her team. Gather as many survivors as you can and get them back to the shuttles. We'll follow the trail and find these Zetherians. The team sprang into action, helping the Valens to safety while Dawson finished extracting the data. As they made their way back to the shuttles, the weight of the mission settled heavily on everyone. They had uncovered critical information, but it came with the knowledge that a far greater threat loomed on the horizon. Once aboard the Eclipse, Lavra called an emergency meeting with her senior officers. "We know who we're dealing with now," she began. "The Zetherians are back, and they're armed with a weapon that could destroy entire systems. Our job is to track them down and neutralize the threat." Commander Keller nodded. "But we can't do this recklessly. We'll need a plan and reinforcements." "We'll have both," Lavra assured him. "For now, set a course for the coordinates Brooks identified. Let's see where this trail leads." As the fleet jumped back into hyperspace, the crew prepared for what lay ahead. The battle for Lyria Prime had been devastating, but it was only the beginning. The Zetherians were out there somewhere, and stopping them would require every ounce of skill, courage, and determination the humans could muster. In the quiet moments between preparations, Lavra stood alone on the bridge, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but she also knew they couldn't turn back. For the sake of the Alliance, for the Valens, and for all sentient beings in the galaxy, they had to face the Zetherians. And little did they know, the true test of their resolve was yet to come. The fleet emerged from hyperspace near a dense nebula, its swirling clouds glowing faintly in shades of purple and blue. The sight was breathtaking, but no one on the Eclipse had time to admire it. Captain LeVar Bennett stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the monitors as the crew worked to pinpoint the exact location of the Zetherian forces. Lieutenant Daniel Brooks, seated at his station, adjusted the sensors to cut through the interference caused by the thick gas clouds. "There's something out there," Daniel said, his voice tense. "It's faint, but I'm picking up energy. Signatures consistent with the ones we detected near Lyria Prime. Can you get a lock on their position?" Lavra asked, leaning over his shoulder. "I'm trying, but the nebula's making it difficult." "Whoever they are, they know how to hide," Daniel replied. Frustration creeping into his tone, Commander Ryan Keller approached, his arms crossed. "If they're hiding, it means they're expecting us or someone else to come looking for them. We need to be careful," Lavara nodded. "Agreed. Prepare the fleet for possible combat. And tell the other ships to stay alert. We don't want any surprises." As the fleet moved deeper into the nebula, the tension aboard the Eclipse grew palpable. Ensign Rachel Meyer sat at her navigation console, her hands steady despite the nerves twisting in her stomach. She plotted a course through the treacherous terrain, avoiding areas where the gas clouds were thickest. The last thing they needed was to lose visibility or run into hidden dangers. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. A series of explosions rocked the Vanguard, one of the ships in the fleet. Its hull buckled under the impact, smoke billowing from the damaged sections. "They hit us!" shouted Lieutenant Emma Dawson, who had been monitoring the ship's systems. "It's a minefield." "Full evasive maneuvers," Lavra ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Get the Vanguard clear of the area and assess the damage." The fleet scattered, narrowly avoiding more mines hidden within the nebula. The Vanguard limped away, its engine sputtering as repair crews scrambled to contain the damage. "Captain!" Bennett clenched her jaw, her mind racing. The Zetherians were not only well hidden, but also prepared for intruders. "This wasn't going to be an easy fight. We need to find their base," LeVar said firmly. "Brooks, keep scanning. There has to be a way through this mess." After several tense minutes, Daniel's face lit up. "I've got something. There's a large structure ahead, looks like it's embedded in an asteroid field. It's emitting the same energy signature as the weapon we saw in the Valen files." "That's our target," Lavra declared. "Keller, assemble a strike team. We're going in." The plan was risky. A small group of soldiers would infiltrate the Zetherian fortress using cloaked shuttles, while the rest of the fleet provided cover. Lieutenant Dawson volunteered to lead the ground team, knowing her engineering skills might be crucial if they encountered advanced technology. Ensign Rachel Meyer joined her, still feeling the weight of responsibility but determined to prove herself. As the shuttles detached from the fleet and slipped silently toward the asteroid field, the crew braced themselves for what lay ahead. The fortress loomed larger as they approached, its jagged surface covered in strange markings that glowed faintly in the dim light. Landing on a secluded platform, the team disembarked, their weapons drawn and their movements cautious. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered one of the soldiers, his voice barely above a whisper. "Stay focused," Dawson said sharply. "We're here to disable their defenses, not sightsee." The team moved quickly through the fortress, navigating narrow corridors lined with glowing panels and strange alien symbols. The air was cold, and the silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing off the walls. Every corner they turned seemed to lead deeper into the labyrinth, and the sense of unease among the group grew stronger. Rachel stayed close to Dawson, her heart pounding as she scanned the area for traps or enemies. They hadn't encountered any resistance yet, which only made her more nervous. "Why hasn't anyone attacked us?" she whispered to Dawson. "They're probably waiting for us to make a mistake," Dawson replied grimly. "Don't let your guard down." Their caution paid off when they reached a wide chamber filled with automated turrets mounted on the walls. Before the team could react, the turrets whirred to life, targeting them with deadly precision. Shots rang out, forcing the group to dive for cover behind debris scattered across the room. "Take them out!" Dawson shouted, firing back at the turrets. The team returned fire, their shots striking the machines until they sparked and fell silent. Breathing heavily, Rachel peeked around her cover. "Is that all of them?" "For now," Dawson said, standing up cautiously. "But we're running out of time." "Keep moving." They pressed on, finally reaching the control center deep within the fortress. Inside, rows of consoles blinked with lights, and a massive holographic display showed the weapon's status. Dawson immediately set to work, her fingers flying over the controls as she attempted to disable the system. "How long will this take?" Rachel asked, keeping watch at the door. "Not long," Dawson replied without looking up. "Just give me a minute." But before she could finish, the doors burst open, and a squad of Zetherian soldiers stormed in. Their armor gleamed menacingly, and their weapons hummed with energy. The humans raised their guns, ready to fight, but the Zetherians outnumbered. "Then, Dawson, hurry!" Rachel yelled, firing at the attackers. The room erupted into chaos as both sides exchanged fire. Sparks flew, and the air filled with the acrid smell of burnt metal. Dawson ignored the commotion, her focus entirely on the console. Her hands trembled slightly as she entered the final commands, sweat dripping down her face. Almost there. One of the Zetherians charged toward her, raising his weapon. Without hesitation, Dawson grabbed a nearby tool and swung it, striking him hard enough to knock him back. She turned back to the console just in time to press the last button. "The core's destabilizing," she shouted. "We need to get out of here now." The team didn't need to be told twice. They retreated as fast as they could, dodging enemy fire and leaping over obstacles. Behind them, the fortress began to shake violently, warning sirens blaring throughout the structure. Back aboard the Eclipse, Lavra watched anxiously as the shuttles returned, their hulls scorched from the escape. When Dawson and Rachel stepped onto the bridge, Lavar noticed the exhaustion etched on their faces. "Did you do it?" she asked. Dawson nodded. "The weapon's gone, but the fortress is collapsing. We barely made it out alive." "Well done," Lavra said, relief washing over her. "Now let's get out of here before—" Her words were cut short as another alarm sounded. The crew looked up to see a fleet of Krylos ships emerging from hyperspace, their weapons trained on the human fleet. "Admiral Hayes wasn't kidding," Keller muttered. "They're here to clean up whatever's left." Laura's expression hardened. "Prepare for battle. We're not leaving until we're sure the Zetherians are finished." The battle that followed was fierce, with both sides exchanging heavy fire. The humans fought valiantly, their ships maneuvering through the chaos to protect each other. Despite being outnumbered, they managed to hold their ground, buying enough time for the fortress to collapse completely. When the dust settled, the Zetherian threat was neutralized for now. But as the fleet regrouped and tended to their wounded, Lavra couldn't shake the feeling that this victory came at a cost. The Krylos fleet lingered nearby, their intentions unclear. and somewhere in the galaxy, fragments of the Zetherians. Plans remained, waiting to resurface. For the crew of the Eclipse, the mission was far from over. The battle against the Krylos fleet had been fierce, but the humans held their ground. Captain LaVabre Bennett stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, her face lined with exhaustion and determination. The ship's hull had taken heavy damage during the fight, and smoke lingered in the air from overheated systems. Around her, the crew worked tirelessly to repair what they could while monitoring the situation outside. The Krylos ships had pulled back for now, retreating into the nebula after realizing the fortress was lost. But Lavra knew they wouldn't stay away for long. The Krylos Empire always had a plan, and their sudden appearance here suggested they wanted something the Zetherians had been working on. Damage report, Lavra ordered, turning to Lieutenant Emma Dawson, who had returned from the ground mission battered but alive. The shields are holding at 30%, Dawson replied, her voice steady despite the fatigue in her eyes. Engines are stable, but we've got multiple breaches in the lower decks. Repair crews are handling it, Lavra nodded. Good work. Keep me updated. As Dawson relayed orders to the engineering team, Ensign Rachel Meyer approached cautiously. Her hands were trembling slightly, but she looked more composed than she had earlier in the mission. Captain, I wanted to say thank you for trusting me. I know I'm still new, but you did well out there, Ensign, Lavra interrupted gently. You kept your head when things got tough, and that's all anyone can ask for. Don't doubt yourself. Rachel managed a small smile before returning to her station. Though the praise meant a lot to her, she couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. Meanwhile, Commander Ryan Keller sat in the briefing room, reviewing the data recovered by Dawson during the infiltration. What he saw troubled him deeply. The schematics of the Zetherian weapon revealed not only its destructive potential but also its origins. Much of the technology matched designs stolen directly from the Valens, but some components were unfamiliar far beyond anything humanity or their allies had ever seen. This isn't just about revenge, Keller muttered to himself. They're building something bigger. His thoughts were interrupted when Lieutenant Daniel Brooks entered the room, his expression grim. Commander, we have a problem. What is it? Keller asked, standing up. It's Lieutenant Marcus Halley, Brooks said quietly. He's been acting suspiciously since we left Lyria Prime. I caught him tampering with the communication logs earlier. Keller frowned. Are you sure? Yes, sir, and there's more. Brooks hesitated before continuing. I traced unauthorized transmissions coming from his quarters. They matched the same frequency we detected near the Zetherian fortress. Keller's jaw tightened. Bring him to the bridge. Now. On the bridge, tension crackled in the air. As Halley was escorted in by two security officers, his usually calm demeanor was replaced by nervousness, his eyes darting around the room. Captain Bennett stepped forward, her gaze piercing. Lieutenant Halley, she began, her tone icy. Care to explain why you've been sending messages to the enemy? Hale's face paled, but he quickly tried to recover. I don't know what you're talking about, Captain. This must be a mistake. No mistakes, Keller said firmly, stepping beside LeVar. We intercepted your transmissions. You've been feeding information to the Zetherians, and maybe even the Krylos. For a moment, Halley remained silent, his mind racing. Then, with a resigned sigh, he slumped in his chair. All right, fine, you caught me. But you don't understand the... Zetherians promised me answers about my family. What do you mean? Lavra demanded. My parents disappeared years ago, Halley admitted bitterly. Official records say they died in a border skirmish, but I never believed it. The Zetherians told me they were taken by the Alliance used as experiments for weapons development. They offered me a chance to find out the truth if I helped them. And you thought betraying your own people was worth it? Keller snapped. I didn't think it would go this far. Halley shot back, his voice rising. I thought they just wanted intel, not to destroy entire planets. Lavra stared at him, her expression unreadable. Finally she spoke. Take him. To the brig, we'll deal with him later. As Halley was led away, the weight of his betrayal settled over the crew. Trust was everything in situations like this, and having one of their own turn against them stung deeply. With the immediate threat neutralized and the traitor secured, Lavra gathered her senior officers for a strategy meeting. The Krylos fleet still lingered nearby, and the humans needed to decide their next move. "We've done what we came here to do," Lavra said. "The Zetherian weapon is gone, and their base is destroyed. But the Krylos aren't going anywhere. If they get involved, this could spiral into a full-scale war. There's no way we can take them on alone," Keller added. "Even with the fleet repaired, we're outnumbered and outgunned. What about reinforcements?" Brooks asked. "Can we call Central Command for backup?" Lavra shook her head. "It'll take days for reinforcements to reach us, and we don't have that kind of time. No, whatever happens next, we handle it ourselves." Dawson raised a hand hesitantly. "What if we use the nebula to our advantage? It's already given us cover once. If we position the fleet strategically, we might be able to hold them off until we figure out their endgame." Lavra considered. It's risky, but it's our best option. Prepare the fleet for another engagement, and keep scanning for any weaknesses in their formation." The hours that followed were tense as the humans maneuvered their ships deeper into the nebula. The glowing gas clouds provided natural camouflage, making it harder for the Krylos to track their movements. But everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the enemy made their move. When the attack finally came, it was swift and brutal. The Krylos ships emerged from the clouds, firing relentlessly at the human fleet. Explosions rocked the Defiant and Aurora, forcing them to fall. Back, the Vanguard, still limping from the earlier minefield incident, struggled to keep up. "Shields are down to 10%. Dawson shouted from her station. "We can't take much more of this." "Target their lead ship," Lavra ordered. "If we can disable it, the rest will scatter." The crew sprang into action, focusing their fire on the largest Krylos vessel. Despite the chaos, Rachel Meyer guided the Eclipse into position with precision, her hands steady on the controls. The combined firepower of the human fleet struck true, crippling the enemy flagship. Seeing their leader falter, the remaining Krylos ships retreated into the nebula, disappearing from view. For a moment there was silence on the bridge as the crew processed what had just happened. "We did it," Brooks said, breaking the quiet. "They're gone, for now," Lavra corrected, her voice firm. "But they'll be back, and next time we might not be so lucky." As the fleet regrouped, Lavra reflected on the cost of their victory. Lieutenant Dawson had sacrificed herself to ensure the team escaped the collapsing fortress, and the betrayal of Marcus Halle had shaken everyone's trust. Yet despite the losses, they had succeeded in stopping the Zetherian threat for now. In the aftermath, Admiral Carter Hayes contacted the fleet via hologram. His face was grave, but pride shone in his eyes. "You've done humanity proud, Captain. The Alliance owes you a great debt." "Thank you, sir," Lavra replied. "But this isn't over. The Krylos are still out there, and the Zetherians may not be completely wiped out. We need to stay vigilant." Hayes nodded. "Agreed. Return to base for repairs and debriefing. Once you're ready, we'll discuss our next steps." As the transmission ended, Lavra turned to her crew. "Well done, everyone. Take some time to rest. You've earned it." Though the immediate danger had passed, the crew of the Eclipse knew the galaxy was far from safe. The Zetherians' return had opened old wounds and raised new questions. Somewhere out there, fragments of their plans remained, waiting to resurface. And the Krylos Empire, with its shadowy motives, loomed as an even greater threat. For now, though, they had survived. And survival in a universe as vast and dangerous as theirs was victory enough. The fleet limped back toward Alliance-controlled space, its ships battered but intact. The journey was quiet, the kind of silence that settles after a storm has passed. Captain Lavra Bennett stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. Her mind replayed the events of the past days, the destruction of Lyria Prime, the infiltration of the Zetherian fortress, the betrayal of Lieutenant Marcus Halle, and the fierce battle against the Krylos fleet. Each moment weighed heavily on her, but she knew there was no time to dwell. The galaxy wasn't done testing them. As they approached Central Command, the crew prepared for debriefing. Admiral Carter Hayes greeted them personally, his expression a mix of pride and concern. "You've done humanity proud," he said as Lavra stepped off the ship. "But I need answers. What exactly happened out there?" Lavra recounted everything: the Zetherians' return, their devastating weapon, and the intervention of the Krylos Empire. She handed over the data recovered by Lieutenant Emma Dawson before her sacrifice, explaining its significance. "This isn't just about revenge or power," Lavra concluded. "The Zetherians were building something far bigger than we imagined. And the Krylos? They're not acting alone. Someone or something is pulling strings." Hayes listened intently, his brow furrowed. "We'll analyze this information thoroughly. But you're right about one thing: this isn't over. If the Krylos are involved, it means they see an opportunity. We can't let them gain the upper hand." In the days that followed, life aboard the Eclipse slowly returned to normal. Repairs were underway, and the crew worked tirelessly to restore the ship to full functionality. Ensign Rachel Meyer spent long hours in the navigation bay, running simulations and practicing maneuvers. The mission had pushed her to her limits, but she'd risen to the challenge. For the first time, she felt like she belonged not just as part of the crew, but as someone who could make a difference. Commander Ryan Keller kept a close eye on morale. He knew how much the loss of Lieutenant Dawson and the betrayal of Halle had affected everyone. During meals in the mess hall, he made a point of sitting with different groups, sharing stories and reminding them of why they fought. "We lost good people," he said one evening, addressing a group of junior officers, "but their sacrifices weren't in vain. Because of them, we stopped something that could have destroyed entire star systems. Remember that." Lieutenant Daniel Brooks spent most of his time analyzing the recovered data. The schematics of the Zetherian weapon revealed disturbing details, technology so advanced it seemed almost alien, even to the Valens. Brooks couldn't shake the feeling that the Zetherians hadn't acted alone. Someone had provided them with resources and knowledge beyond their capabilities. He shared his suspicions with Lavra during a private meeting. "You think there's another faction involved?" Lavra asked, leaning forward. "It's possible," Brooks replied. "Look at these components. Some of them match designs used by ancient civilizations that vanished millennia ago. Whoever helped the Zetherians knows things we don't, and if the Krylos are working with them, we're looking at a coalition," Lavra finished grimly. "One that could destabilize the entire galaxy." While the humans pieced together what they knew, the Valens struggled to rebuild Lyria Prime. Survivors poured into refugee camps, their faces etched with grief and exhaustion. Despite the devastation, they remained resilient, determined to honor those they had lost. A delegation of Valen leaders traveled to Central Command to thank the humans for their efforts. "The bond between our peoples is stronger than ever," said Elder Tarek, the Valen ambassador, during a formal ceremony. "Your bravery saved countless lives. We will never forget your sacrifice." Lavra accepted the gratitude humbly, though she knew the fight was far from over. After the ceremony, Tarek pulled her aside. "There is more you should know," he said quietly. "Before the attack, our scientists uncovered traces of Zetherian activity near the Voida region of space, thought to be uninhabitable. It is possible they have established bases there." "The Void?" Lavra repeated, surprised. "That's deep in uncharted territory." "Are you sure?" Tarek nodded. "We cannot prove it, but it aligns with what little we know of their movements. If they have hidden strongholds, they may regroup and strike again." Lavra thanked him and relayed the information to Admiral Hayes. "If the Zetherians are hiding in the Void, we need to investigate," she urged. "But we can't do it alone. We'll need reinforcements and maybe even help from other allies." Hayes agreed. "I'll assemble a task force. You'll lead it, Captain. Find out what's really going on out there." Preparations for the new mission began immediately. The Eclipse was joined by several additional ships, including the newly repaired Vanguard. Morale among the crew improved as they focused on the task ahead. Rachel Meyer threw herself into her work, determined to prove her worth. Brooks continued poring over the data, searching for any clues that might give them an edge. Even Keller, usually stoic, allowed himself a small smile as he watched the team come together. Before departure, Lavra addressed the crew. "What we're about to do won't be easy," she said, standing tall on the bridge. "The void is dangerous, unpredictable, but if the Zetherians are hiding there, we can't afford to ignore it. This isn't just about protecting ourselves, it's about protecting the future of the galaxy." Her words resonated deeply as the fleet jumped into hyperspace. Once more, the crew felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced unimaginable challenges and emerged stronger. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The void lived up to its name. The region was shrouded in darkness, with only faint glimmers of light piercing the eternal night. Navigation proved difficult, and the sensors struggled to penetrate the thick layers of cosmic dust. But Rachel Meyer rose to the occasion, guiding the fleet safely through the treacherous terrain. "I've got us on track," she reported confidently. "Just stay steady." After hours of searching, Brooks detected faint energy signatures emanating from a nearby asteroid cluster. "That's it," he said, excitement in his voice. "Something's out there." The fleet approached cautiously, weapons ready. What they found shocked them, a massive Zetherian base partially concealed within the asteroids. Its surface bristled with weapons turrets and shield generators, clearly designed to withstand an assault. "They knew we'd come," Keller muttered, studying the readings. "This place is a fortress," Lavra nodded. "Then we'll have to be smarter than they expect." "Brooks, find a weak point. Meyer, plot a course to get us close without triggering their defenses." The plan came together quickly. Using cloaked shuttles, a small strike team infiltrated the base while the fleet distracted the outer defenses. Inside, they discovered evidence of ongoing experiments projects far more advanced than the weapon used on Lyria Prime. It became clear that the Zetherians weren't just planning attacks. They were preparing for war on a galactic scale. As the team planted explosives to destroy the base, they encountered resistance. The fighting was intense, but the humans pressed on, driven by the knowledge that failure wasn't an option. When the charges detonated, the base erupted in a fiery explosion, lighting up the dark void like a second sun. Back aboard the Eclipse, the crew watched as the flames faded into the blackness. Exhausted but victorious, they allowed themselves a moment of quiet reflection. Lavra stood on the bridge, gazing at the stars. "We stopped them, for now," she said softly. "But the galaxy is still fragile. There will always be threats, enemies lurking in the shadows. Our job is to protect it." "To keep fighting," Keller joined her, nodding, "and we will. As long as we stand together, we can face anything." The fleet set course for home, their hearts heavy but hopeful. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, but they had proven one thing above all else. Humanity's spirit was unbreakable. In a universe filled with chaos and danger, that was a truth worth holding on to.